And welcome everyone to the Donovan Live Postgame Show here on WKYC's Facebook Live. Along with Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Nice to have everybody with us as we start a new week. And I first and foremost want to update you on what's happening at Progressive Field. Indians taking on the Texas Rangers tonight. They've just pushed home a run to have the Tribe, and they've grabbed a 2-1 edge going into the sixth inning with Trevor Bauer pitching very, very well to this point. A run on 3 hits with 9 strikeouts. So we'll watch that for you, and Jimmy will have all the highlights for you coming up tonight at Channel 3 News at 11. Okay, I want to start with the Cavs, and then we will obviously get to the Browns, and there's no shortage of things to talk about. But the Cavs did it. It took them 7 games. It took every ounce of LeBron James's energy, literally, to get them through. But they got through. They got past the Pacers. And a different kind of matchup awaits them starting tomorrow night in Toronto against the Raptors, a team that they have played pretty well against during the regular season. What did you take away, though, from Game 7?
Well, I take it away from Game 6, actually. I think something happened in Game 6, which was a nightmare for the Cavaliers. Yeah. They lost by 34 on Friday night, and that leveled the series at 3-3. And it was in garbage time that I think something happened for the Cavaliers. And they rediscovered Tristan Thompson.
Yeah.
And they brought him in late in that game. And you could say, oh, well, I mean, But the Cavaliers they kind of ignited his fire and his competitive juices. And he went in maybe the last 5 or 6 minutes of that game, and he was the old Tristan Thompson. Yeah. So they put him in yesterday, and he definitely was the old Tristan Thompson, the Tristan Thompson that was a part of the championship team a couple of years ago. Now, that's a big boost for them, I think. I mean, I think that was a big help. The other big help was George Hill coming in and having the bad back and being able to come off the bench at a point where that game got a little shaky. They went behind in the third quarter. People forget that Indiana took the lead at 61-58 in the third quarter, and then the Cavs got it right back. But George Hill gave them 19 minutes, and he gave them a really good effort. Now, remember, that's been missing since Game 1 of the series. But still, Dino, the math that we've talked about a number of times is the math that's true to form. LeBron gave them 45 points in the game. And it's amazing to think that he has to give them that kind of total. And you just wonder how long he can keep it up. Because when he's in the 20s, they don't win.
They can't win.
So he's got to be 30, maybe 35 and over.
I want to find the median number there, because I do think it's right around 34, 35. When if he goes south of that, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have a hard time winning. If he goes above that, then you feel pretty good. Interesting note on Tristan Thompson. Since LeBron James has come back, here's a good stat courtesy of Adam Kenyon on our staff. Over the last 4 years, if he goes a double-double, the Cavs are 45-5 in the regular season. And take this because of Golden State, 9-6 in the playoffs, counting yesterday. So when he hits a double-double, your chances are good. I just like that Tyronn Lue wasn't afraid to do that and say, look, I'm going to go down with the 4 guys that were here when we won a championship in my starting lineup, and Kyle Korver is the 5th veteran, and I'm gonna ride with these guys, and I'm going to bring in George Hill when I think it's the appropriate time. And he mixed and matched all game. The other thing, Jimmy, was to start that fourth quarter, and LeBron was able to get a couple of minutes of rest. I think Kevin Love found a little bit of confidence that he's been lacking. I'm still not 100% convinced that thumb is not really bothering him, but he was able to pop in a couple of shots, and that seemed to help, and that got the lead. I think it was at 3 or 4 at the end of the quarter.
There was a point where it had gone down to 4.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, it ballooned up to 12 in a hurry.
And then all of a sudden, you didn't have to bring in LeBron right away. That advantage Cavs.
Earlier in the game, Love was turning down shots.
Yes.
I mean, and that's a lack of confidence in just saying, hey, listen, I don't have it right now. So you're right. I mean, there were some good things to take out of it. Number 1, they won.
Yeah.
Number 2, that they go to Toronto now, and they might have a little bit more in their bag of tricks to pull out, and a little bit something more for the Raptors to think about that they're going to have to defend against, because Tristan Thompson was among the missing, really, for most of the season, but certainly, really in the last month or so. I mean, he hasn't gotten off the bench.
Right.
And it's been coach's decision. So here's the other thing. If you're going to stay outside and shoot threes, Okay, and they do that. They go through periods of time where they stay outside and shoot threes. The other thing that Thompson can do is he at least gives you the chance of getting an offensive rebound.
Correct.
He tips balls. He gets balls. He fights for position because realistically on Friday and at other times in the series when those big leads have gone down, when they've gone into a three-point shooting mode, it's because they get one shot and they're done.
That's it.
Now, Thompson, he's not going to get them all, but he is going to get you some, and now you're getting an extra possession, you're getting an extra shot. A lot of times those turn into a foul situation because you've defended so long that you're out of position anyway, that him getting that offensive rebound. This is a team, though, that Toronto, that great year, number 1 in the Eastern Conference, terrific at home, 34-7, I think, at home during the year. Still, 6 games against Washington, and they were a little wobbly. I mean, they came back 2-2, and then finally won Game 5, and they won Game 6 on Friday night to get out of the series. But I really still believe the Cavaliers are in their head.
Yeah, I do too.
That's something they have to overcome, and that mental hurdle that they have to get over is a very, very big hurdle. This is the 3rd year in a row now they've played in the playoffs.
And I think if you're the Cavs, I think you can get, even if you don't win one of the first 2 games, okay, but if you could take that first game tomorrow and keep that psychological edge where you automatically do no worse than to get a split in Toronto and you've taken home court advantage on day 1, on game 1, I really think then you can really seize command of the series very early.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember too is that sometimes people will forecast the series and say, "Well, the Cavs went 7 games and they win Sunday and they get on a plane Monday. They left at 1:30 this afternoon and they went up to Toronto and they haven't had any rest." But let me tell you, a lot of times, not that Toronto's been sitting around, okay?
Right.
I mean, they played Friday, so they had Saturday, Sunday, they had today, okay? And that's a modest rest. It's not like they've been hanging around a week. So remember, the Cavs used to sweep and wait 9 days to play.
And then
the second round.
More often than not, they'd be stale.
But more on the Cavs side, I think the Cavs are coming out of a 7th game, you're in a little bit of attack mode.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, whether you're at home or you're playing on the road, and tomorrow night they're on the road, I don't think that's a bad position to be in. I think you go in and you are already mentally set that you know that you're going in. They're a 6.5-point underdog tomorrow night going into that game. I like their position tomorrow night. I really do. Toronto's going to have to prove to me, Dino, the Cavs, but mostly to themselves that they can beat that team. They can beat the Cavs.
No small task. We've seen this in NBA history. Teams that. I always think about whether it was like the Bulls against the Pistons. It took Chicago years to finally get past Detroit. It took Detroit years to get past Boston. More recently, Indiana could never get past the Miami Heat, and now they've lost to the Cavs 2 years in a row. So, I mean, it just you can't help it. It's psychological. It stays with you. Yeah. A couple of quick questions here, quick points from you on Facebook before we get to the Browns. Robert Lowry, I love how LeBron is playing, but he's going to run out of gas, unfortunately. It's unfortunate. I mean, he said yesterday, he was exhausted, and a lot of people who cover the Cavs on a daily basis said they haven't seen LeBron that tired. I heard one person since Game 6 in 2015 when they lost the finals to Golden State at home.
Yeah. Or he was all by himself in the finals.
Or Game 5 in Detroit in the 07 playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals when, LeBron, did everything that night in that 48-point virtuoso game.
It was double overtime, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He's, and he's played every game this year, okay? Remember, now, there have been other seasons like last year where he would take some time off. He would miss those back-to-backs, the back end of a back-to-back. And, of course, the NBA got very, very sensitive to that issue, not just with LeBron and the Cavaliers, but with a lot of other teams, and changed the way they schedule those things. So LeBron played in every game this year, and, of course, he's played in 7 now in the playoffs, and he's been needed, at a very, very high level. But, if you're Indiana, you walk out of that series, and I know they're disappointed, but they had a phenomenal year. I mean, nobody expected them to be in the playoffs, never mind to take the Cavs to 7 games. But like I said, and this goes for Toronto too, I think you get one shot.
Yeah.
Okay? When they lost that Sunday game, at home.
Yes.
And the opportunity to go up 3-1, and they had the lead with about 4 and change left to go in the game. I think that was their chance.
Yeah.
And I know they had a great senior night on Friday night where everybody played, and guys got their letter, and they'll have their banquet tomorrow night, and it'll be great.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is they had their shot to go up 3-1, and they didn't pull the trigger and get it done. And the math got the Cavs home. Win the 2 home games, and you're in.
Yeah. It's the beauty of having home court advantage. Also from Paul, Kevin Love finally did hit some threes yesterday, but for the most part in the series, he looked lost, especially after the hand injury. And, that was the thing that just bothered you the most was that, okay, if the hand's hurting, maybe the shots aren't falling, but he was passive. I mean, he wasn't going after loose basketballs. He wasn't doing the other things when Kevin does when he's not shooting well. He always finds ways to contribute. He wasn't doing that.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, I mean, why isn't he inside a little bit more? He's way out on that wing all the time. I mean, he's 25 feet away from the basket.
I thought we were done with that because Kyrie Irving was gone, and and the Cavs, were doing a lot more things with James and Love in the two-man.
Yeah. I don't know. I do think that, the other night, it's not only the hand, but he got cracked across the bridge of the nose. On Friday night, he went down, and, he's got to you got to toughen it up. You got to tough it out. You got to gut it out. You got to play. I mean, LeBron took 2 stitches the other night, and he's like an NHL player. He didn't miss a shift. He was right back out there. It's like he was playing for the Maple Leafs.
But I thought about that. LeBron specifically called out Love after that Game 6 and said, "Hey, look, we can't do anything without Kevin Love here." And I thought that was interesting and just kind of needled him a little bit. And Love took him to the fourth quarter, but he did finally respond.
Michael Jordan's called his teammates out,
yes,
and I remember a famous time Larry Bird called out the Celtics. They're playing in the NBA Finals, and they're losing to the Lakers. They lost. They split in Boston Garden. They went back to L.A. They got blown out in Game 3, and embarrassingly so. And they're down 2-1, and they have to win at the Forum to tie the series up, or they're in a lot of trouble. And Larry Bird went into the locker room, and he said, "My teammates played like a bunch of sissies tonight." And they came out the next night and they won. That led to the famous Kevin McHale
clothesline and Kurt Rambis.
Right.
Yeah, that changed that
These
series.
great moments in Celtic history are brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts.
Now, meanwhile, might we get some great moments in Cleveland Browns history after the 2018 NFL Draft? Now, it was obviously, we spent a lot of time, you and I, on Thursday, just kind of miffed at why they selected Baker Mayfield. The more I listened to him Friday and listened to people talk about him Friday and talk to people, as you did in Berea Friday, I think I felt a little bit better about it as the weekend went by. And I thought for the rest of the weekend, the Browns made very sensible picks. We were right on. By the way, I'd like to point out in this show, we were right on point. We said we thought the Browns with those first 5 picks would come away with a quarterback, check. Skill position player, particularly running back, Nick Chubb, check. Offensive lineman, check. Pass rusher, check. And cornerback, check. So I thought it was a very sensible draft. We can argue the merits of Baker Mayfield. We're going to get a chance to see those in the way kind of they seem to alter their plan. But for the rest of it, I thought the Browns were pretty smart about what they did.
Well, I hope so. I think like every team right now, I think it's a wait and see type of proposition. I really do. And I think the key to the draft is Mayfield.
Yeah.
I think Denzel Ward will be fine. I think he'll start. I think he'll be coached up. I think he's going to be a really good corner.
Me too.
Maybe he'll be a great corner. Hopefully he will be. And then that makes that a really good pick. But I think the whole key to everything, okay, whether Antonio Callaway is going to be a good guy with all of the problems he had at Florida, and that was a risky pick, whether the offensive lineman Corbett, the kid from Nevada, where he's going to play on the offensive line, okay, but he's a big, tough guy. I get that. And Chubb, like you alluded to, great desire, power running back. But the whole key, let's face it, it's Baker Mayfield.
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole key. He's the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Dino, they are so excited about having him. It's unbelievable. I mean, it wasn't even a choice.
Yeah.
There was no choice. I mean, he was the runaway favorite, and he has been, come to find out, for a long period of time. I think it's been, detailed rather, a lot of times that John Dorsey saw him up to 6 times.
Yeah.
In person.
Yeah,
before he became the
GM
of the Browns.
And looking back on it, I felt like those were breadcrumbs that maybe we should have all paid attention. I went back and I saw that he had told Peter King that the day after I think he became Browns GM that I went and watched Baker Mayfield play 6 times.
Well, I think the key is Baker Mayfield, and they said it wasn't even a close. Kind of choice. I mean, I would think, Dino, the way I think it was explained, I think that Josh Rosen might have been the second choice and a distant one away from Mayfield. I don't think that they were in on Darnold, which I was surprised at, and I think it's not that they weren't in on Allen, but I think that they looked at Allen and said, that's a project. That's got some teaching and learning and getting better before you can put him out on the field. And that might be a couple of years away. Now to Mayfield.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this guy, the one thing I was so comfortable about, and this should eradicate any comparisons to Manziel, and that is this guy can really talk football.
Yeah. Because you asked him about it Friday at the press conference.
Yeah, I asked him about the Oklahoma offense, which he ran with incredible precision. Okay, he really did. I mean, Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops before him, they didn't even have to call the plays because Mayfield just knew the offense so well and understood it and understood what they wanted to do and what play they should be in that, he just did it. And he did it at a very high level, obviously. And I asked him, that offense, could it work in the NFL, or is it already working in the NFL? Do you see it? And, man, well, absolutely. The Rams use it. The Chiefs use it a lot. The Packers use it somewhat. You can see it in a lot of different areas. And then he went through the whole concept of the offense, creating matchup favorabilities and quick passing and things like that. Bubble screens, yeah. And it was amazing. Now, you never heard that from Manziel.
No.
You really never heard that from Manziel. I think Johnny played from the seat of his pants, and it worked in college. It did not work in the NFL, but you got to learn to do that. This guy's a learner, though, and it's going to be very interesting. But the whole draft is going to hinge on the who, what, when, where, and why, okay?
Yeah.
When is he going to play? Who is he going to play against when he gets up there? How is he going to play? And I know to all of you out there, how quickly is all that going to happen? And it may be on a faster treadmill than we thought.
Yeah, I mean, people I was watching and looking at what a lot of experts were saying over the weekend. Our old friend Phil Savage, the former Browns GM, now working for Sirius XM satellite radio, in addition to being the color man for the Alabama Crimson Tide radio network. He said October 1st. There were people who said they thought that Mayfield would get the job right out of the chute when the Browns open up against Pittsburgh. And I guess the answer is we don't know. We don't. I mean, but the thought that we won't see Baker Mayfield under center in a regular season Cleveland Browns game until 2019, I no longer believe that.
No, I don't either. And that's no slam on Tyrod Taylor.
No.
Here's the thing, though. Baker Mayfield, has competed at everything in his life, especially his football life. So he goes to Texas Tech. I mean, he didn't really have any offers.
No, he was a walk-on at Texas Tech
So
first.
He walks on to Texas Tech. I mean, he was going to go to a Division, wasn't he going to go to a Division III school or something like that? Yeah. But he goes to Texas Tech. He competes and wins the job.
Yeah.
Okay? And then they're going to put him in a quarterback competition the next year. He didn't
with Davis Webb, who ended up transferring too.
So he leaves there, and he walks on to Oklahoma. Bob Stoops didn't even know he was there at first.
Yeah.
Okay, he shows up. He competes again, and they had that kid Travis Knight who had the great bowl game against Alabama. He competes, and he wins the job again, and he never gives it up, of course, at that point. He competed to win the Heisman and did. He competed to be the #1 overall pick in the draft.
And he was.
Guys like Darnold and Allen and not necessarily Rosen. That's why I think Rosen might have been a little bit higher than we gave him credit for. But it was very important for Mayfield to be the #1 overall pick in the draft. He competed and he won at it. Okay, that's why I don't think you can just put him in the corner here in Berea and say, "We'll talk to you in a year."
It's not.
You gotta let him compete.
It's not. Well, that was the worry. It's like, wait a minute. If this is the play, if you've got plan X over here, and it's not to play the quarterback, and you get the guy that is in his DNA to compete, and I want the job, and I've worked and I've done everything that Jimmy said, it doesn't seem to mesh. Suddenly it seems to me that, like everything else, John Dorsey and Hugh Jackson were playing a little bit of a poker game with how they were presenting things. I'm not saying they were lying. I'm saying they were kind of how they were presenting things and how things played itself out were two totally different mindsets. Now, let me ask you this. One of the big differences, I mean, you mentioned the competitiveness of Mayfield, but it sounds like also from everything we heard and everything that was reported, I think, over the weekend, Mayfield's IQ, the ability to do what you asked and be able to talk about offense and go to the whiteboard, as they say, and diagram stuff.
And there is a whiteboard.
And there is actually a whiteboard in Berea. That was a big deciding factor, apparently, in why he really emerged at the top of the Browns and apparently on top of some other NFL teams too.
And the other thing, he should take all of the people that were involved in his pro day, teammates, coaching staff, support staff from the Sooners, okay, and maybe whoever else was there, sports information directors or whatever, and you should take them out for a good dinner, because their electricity, when he walked into the workout in Norman, and the Browns contingent seeing that and feeling that, was another driving factor in this whole equation of, okay, he can play. Boy, do the people that play with him love him. Okay, that's important. He's won the locker room, obviously. Okay,
that was a big thing for Hugh.
Absolutely.
That was a big thing for Hugh.
And then the final piece was, does he understand what he's doing? And they were blown away by that. So it wasn't even close. It really wasn't even close when you go inside really what they were looking for in their next quarterback. I mean, they knew, and I don't doubt that John Dorsey knew 6 weeks ago, and maybe even longer, that that's the guy he wanted. And he also went on and said, that as soon as they made the pick, a number of people called him and said that would have been my guy.
I think. I don't know if he mentioned at least two other executives that said, and I think the Rams were one of the teams that said, hey, look, if we didn't have Goff, he'd have been at the top of our board.
Right. Now, the interesting thing, too, is a lot of people are wondering what kind of offense will they build for Baker Mayfield? Because you have to run pass option, the RPO. He went into that on Friday.
Air raid.
Here's the thing. He and Tyrod Taylor are very, very much alike. Okay? So the offense that they built for Tyrod Taylor is going to be very, very fittable for Baker Mayfield. They're the same kind of quarterback. The difference is one guy's played and won in the NFL and played a pretty sizable amount of time and gone to the playoffs, and that's Taylor. And then you have this guy here, but it's not like you're going to have two very drastically different offenses, or you're going to force Mayfield to be a round hole and put into a square hole. He's going to be able to fit right in. I mean, that's another thing. That's another correlation, I think, is taking a look at Tyrod Taylor and his physical build, his height, and what he does and what he's known for. Tyrod Taylor makes plays with his legs, maybe a little bit too much for his health, but Mayfield does that too. That's what Mayfield does. So they're really that's going to be a very, very easy shift.
And I think
when it happens,
it's going to be an interesting. I guess selfishly, I thought, well, maybe we're going to go through a summer at training camp where we're not having to chart. How did Tyrod Taylor throw versus how did Baker Mayfield or whoever the rookie quarterback was going to be, how did they throw in practice, who looked better, who's got the edge? We'll probably have to do a lot of that stuff. But at the same time, I do think that, no matter what happens, the Browns are going to be in good hands because they've got a quarterback that they really think in Taylor, who's the veteran, who can manage and run this offense and has shown he can take a team to the playoffs. And this young, intriguing rookie who they are all in love with, who might just kind of turn the timetable completely on its head.
And remember now, he's a little bit older than the other quarterback.
23,
he's 23. And the other thing also to remember as we get into training camp with him, and that is that he did redshirt at Oklahoma one year, and he did mention, I learned a lot. I think he said the right thing there. But he's all about competing. So he's going to compete, and they would be really remiss if they didn't allow him to compete. Yeah, so let the competition begin. Everybody's better for it when it happens. If Tyrod Taylor feels a little heat at his heels, then so be it. Maybe it will make him better.
Show it. You know,
and it won't be unique. He's had heat at his heels every year in Buffalo that he's played.
You know, it could end up being, 100 different circumstances. I always think of Russell Wilson in Seattle. You know, Seattle had invested in that offseason a lot of money on Matt Flynn, the Packers backup, who had thrown up video game numbers replacing Aaron Rodgers for 2 weeks. And, Seattle threw a ton of money at him. And they drafted Russell Wilson. It was a third-round pick, but Wilson had such a good camp. And Flynn just never was able to beat him out. And Wilson ended up being the starter, and within a year had them in the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but there are a bunch of different scenarios in NFL history you can look back on that maybe you can get a reference on how this might work out. I don't know.
Well, yeah, there are. I mean, there are recent examples of that. I mean, Derek Carr, the same thing happened with the Raiders. They made a quick move. They went through the preseason. I think everyone, I don't think, was it McGloin was out there? And they, I mean, there were other people out there, and then people just went, you know what, we're going to play him. And, they took their lumps now by playing him, okay? But still, he was ready to go. He was getting better and better and better every week. He wasn't like, unfortunately, Deshaun Kaiser, who really regressed with the misfortune that he went through. Another guy is, Andy Dalton. They put him right in right away. Now, he opened up against the Browns his first game, and he injured his thumb. But still, I mean, they were willing to make the move and play him right away.
So a lot to look forward to. The Browns will have these rookies and the free agent rookies that they signed after the draft. They'll all be in town this weekend for rookie camp on Friday, Saturday. So we'll get our first look at some of those guys.
Dino, I would tell you there's a theme, I think, as we get ready here, and definitely for training camp and the preseason games, and then leading up to the Steeler opener. I would advise Hugh, Tyrod Taylor, and Carlos Hyde win early.
Yes. That's right. Because Alonzo Highsmith was asked about, why would you get a back like Nick Chubb if you've got a guy like Carlos Hyde? And I love the answer. He's like, look, this is the AFC North. Nobody gets the ball 30 times a game anymore. I want two guys that can, handle the load and share the load. But you're right. I mean, Nick Chubb is he's another guy that's going to be fighting for a spot. He's an overcomer. He's overcome a knee injury. He's going to be fighting for a spot in camp.
And of course, remember now, in the Georgia offense, they were a two-headed monster because he, along with Sony Michel, they were a really good tandem. And they almost won the national title with that tandem. I mean, they really did. They had it going against Alabama, and of course, they beat Mayfield and his Sooners in a couple of overtimes in the Rose Bowl. So I think competition is on. These guys like Chubb, certainly Mayfield, and I think Ward goes right in. Okay, Denzel Ward goes right in. And these other guys, these are the next guys. These are the next guys. They are right on the doorstep of going in, if only because they were drafted by this GM.
Right. And you pair them with a guy like Myles Garrett, and you see now what the plan is. These 5 or 6 guys, and Jarvis Landry, who I know is not a rookie, but he's a free agent brought in by John Dorsey. These are your new Browns core players, guys. I mean, the Joe Thomas era has gone. These are your new core players. For better and worse. You're going to ride with them.
One more thing in it, and it was why didn't they take Bradley Chubb? And why didn't they take Bradley Chubb? I mean, we estimated that magical front of Garrett with Chubb and Ogba going inside. Well, they don't want Ogba inside. They think Ogba's a real star on the outside. And that if Garrett and Ogba are together, they're going to be just fine. They evaluated Chubb as about a 4 or 5 sack a year guy. So they just did not think that
they didn't think it was worthy of the 4th pick. So we'll find. That's one of the things we'll watch in this season. We'll see. I mean, look, Chubb's going to do really well in Denver. I mean, with Von Miller on the other side, but will be something to watch. But I was fine with the pick Ward then. I'm still fine with it. I think he's the guy you want. Go get him. And they didn't have to trade down. Either.
I mean, they sorely needed a corner. I just thought they might get one a little bit later.
I did too.
And I think in the plan of plans, if everything, played to the way they wanted it to happen, I think they would have gotten Ward and traded down a little bit.
Yeah.
But when they couldn't get that deal and guarantee that they were still going to get Ward, so in other words, the offers they were getting, it was going to take them too far down, and then Ward's gone, then you're into what you did last year.
Exactly.
Okay? I think, you know what? We like him. Let's get him. Let's get him at 4.
Exactly. I promise, last question. Surprised that Jamar Taylor and or Corey Coleman are still Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, a little bit, because Taylor, I think, was out there on the market. Coleman, interesting, situation. I think it's been termed by everybody in Power in Berea that it's a very big year for Corey Coleman, and it is a very big year for Corey Coleman, not contractually, because he's a first-round choice. They can control him for 5.
Yeah.
He's coming into his 3rd year. It's because his first 2 years have been injury-filled, not his fault. But before and after the injuries, they've been less than what you should get from a first-round draft choice like him. So I'm not surprised yet that I'm not surprised about Coleman. Taylor, I don't know what the market would be.
Yeah.
He's an older corner. I don't know what they would have been able to get.
Yeah, might be something where we see him at training camp and then maybe cut loose and let a team that needs a cornerback pick him up. We'll wait and see how that goes. All right, that will do it. For David Herviton, our producer-director, and, of course, for Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thank you for watching the Donovan Live Postgame Show right here on WKYC's Facebook Live.